It's 6 o'clock. Good evening. Welcome to the national news on I-FLIER 103.3 FM, Ibadan. Hi, I'm Marvelous Sobaloju-Oyedele. First, the headlines. Central Bank of Nigeria raises interest rates to tackle inflation. 48 repentant cultists lay down arms in Ogun State. In entertainment, Nigerian cross-dresser Bobrisky insists on not competing with anyone. And in sports Minister John Eno reveals Nigeria has facilities to host Commonwealth Games. Now the news in details. The Central Bank of Nigeria has raised the monetary policy rate known as the interest rate by 200 basic points to 24.75% from 22.75% in efforts to tackle rising inflation. The CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso, who disclosed this today at the 294th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee press briefing in Abuja, retained the cash reserve ratio to 45%. The Apex Bank boss said the move was to ensure that the country's rising inflation rate, which stood at 31.70% in February, was moderated. The Chairman House Committee on HIV and AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria Control, Amobi Oga, has described as worrisome Nigerian statistics as they relate to tuberculosis. Oga, who stated this in Abuja during a tuberculosis sensitization campaign at the Gaki Horta Modern Market, said Nigeria, being the first in Africa, sixth in the world, is primarily dependent on international funding for its TB control campaign, noting that only 6% comes from domestic sources. Oga therefore called for a deliberate investment in building the capacity for health workers and systems that will promote rapid case finding and research on TB in Nigeria. Moving on, Kaduna-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Hamad Gumi has broken his silence after an invitation by the Department of State Services over his comments on the activities of bandits in the country. Recall that the Minister of Information and Orientation, Mohammed Idris, confirmed that the prominent Islamic cleric was invited for questioning while noting that no one was above the law. According to Gomi, the invitation was necessary and he had a productive interaction with the security agents who queried him. The youth wing of the Apex Igbo Socio-Cultural Organization, Ohanaeze Ndigbo Youth Council Worldwide, has hailed the President Bola Tinubu's government for the release of the school children abducted by bandits in Kaduna State. In a statement made available to newsmen today, the national president of Ohanaeze Ndigbo Youth Council Worldwide, Oku Unabuike, described the efforts of the government and the security agencies as historical, adding that the swift action taken by the government was responsible for the successful rescue of the hostages, stressing that such would have been the case with Chibok girls, but the then government, which was ill-advised, lived in denial until the children were moved to different locations. Unabuike, however, advised the government to go all out and arrest anyone who has anything to do with the escalating cases of abduction and banditry in the country. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit has exposed the alleged funding of terrorist activities in Nigeria by the indigenous people of Biafra, bandits, and other terror groups through global crowdfunding, and on sport betting platforms. The Financial Intelligence Unit, who revealed how IPLB received funds through affiliates in 22 countries that have registered at least 27 entities under the group's name, noted that 7 of the registrations were made in the United States, while 6 were in the United Kingdom. It added that over $160,000 raised by IPOB through crowdfunding was funneled to transmission, media and broadcasting companies in Bulgaria, South Africa, and the UK. The unit, however, urged law enforcement agencies to investigate transactions by individuals linked to known terrorists or financiers, unauthorized tax collection, or forced donation in terrorism-prone areas, and bureau de change operators facilitating transfers with suspected networks. You are listening to the national news on I-FLIER 103.3 FM, Ibadan. The news continues. Welcome back. Now the rest of the news. The Ogun State Commissioner of Police, Abiodun Alamutu, has said no fewer than 48 members of various court groups in the Shagamu area of the state have renounced their membership and forward their firearms to the police for confiscation. Speaking during the handing over of the firearm to the police at the Akaribo Palace, Lamutu said the essence of the Holy Branch being extended to cultists is hinged on giving them a second chance to become better citizens and begin to contribute towards peaceful coexistence in the state. The Akaribo and paramount ruler of Remo Land, Oba Babatunde Ajayi, therefore thanked the Ogun State Governor, Dapo Abiodun, security agencies and the Shagamu Security Committee for working round the clock and begged the residents of the community to show the repentant cultists love, support, and not treat them as outcasts. Now let's join Biduni Ayuba, who is ready for entertainment gists.
In entertainment, popular Nigerian cross-dresser Bobrisky has revealed he is not in a competition with anyone, following his pronouncement as the best-dressed female at a recent event. He, however, warned non-billionaires people criticizing him to back off his business. Bobrisky also boasted on how he is surrounded by billionaires who see no wrong with what he does, but provide him with everything he needs to live a baby girl lifestyle. Nigerian actor Ayola has narrated how lack of money and hunger propelled him into acting. Ayola stated this in an interview on how he developed into the actor his fans have come to know today, adding that he had always known he could act. According to him, he said he knew he had talent for acting but didn't pursue it until he went broke and got to a point he couldn't feed and afford basic needs. Lastly, in entertainment, popular Nigerian rapper Vector has said the paternity fraud in Nigeria shows that Nigerian men are not as unfaithful as the opposite gender. The Crown of Clay crooner stated this while reacting to a viral statistics that claimed Nigeria as the second highest paternity fraud percentage in the world after Jamaica. Taken to his ex handle, Vector wrote that if Nigeria is the second highest in paternity fraud globally, how then are men scum? Meanwhile, it is reported that men are advocating for a DNA test to be made compulsory given the recent cases of paternity fraud in Nigeria. And that's the entertainment news for today on I-FLIER 103.3 FM Ibadan. I am Bidoni Ayuba.
Abiodun Akpino is ready for sports updates.
Now in sport news, Nigerian Sport Minister Senator John Owaeno has stated that the country has all it takes to host a successful Commonwealth Games in 2030. The minister argued that it is black sport on an African country to have never hosted the Games despite being a member since inception in 1930. Eno, while addressing the media at the post-All African Game press conference at the Media Center in Abuja on Tuesday, he admitted that though he's not going to be in the office at the time, but his pushing for Nigeria to be the first country to host the tournament in 2030. In other sports, Super Eagles midfielder Alex Iwobi has hinted that Nigeria wants to end the international break to win against Mali. The Finidi George-led side will take on their fellow West Africans at the Grand Stade de Marrakesh on Tuesday night. The encounter will kick off at 10 p.m. Nigerian time to wrap up the international break for the Super Eagles. Finally, in sport news, Liverpool legend has reportedly advised the club to sell Trent Alexander-Arnold to Real Madrid in the summer of the transfer market. Arnold has been a focal point in Jurgen Klopp's team this season, with his quality despite low of form at the start of the ongoing campaign. Meanwhile, according to Steve Nicol, who hinted that Arnold's defensive frailty might be the reason why the club could decide to let him go the summer of the transfer market. That ends the sport news on I-FLIER 103.3 FM Ibadan. I'm Biodun Akpeno.
Moving on, Samson Omotosho is ready for today's editorial review.
Presidency's 3-month ban on foreign trips of the Nigerian Tribune and guardrails against divisive election litigation of the Punch are our editorial focus for today. Starting with the Nigerian Tribune, after the deluge of criticisms that attended the embarrassing offshore workshop which the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation organized for some of its staff and 36 state commissioners of finance recently, Presidency announced certain measures to rein in acts of profligacy and insensitivity of these austere times, albeit curiously so on a temporary basis. The directive issued on March 12 states that the ban will be effective for 3 months beginning from April 1st, 2024. Again, it is one big thing to issue directives, but it is another for the directives to be obeyed, especially in an environment where those who are to comply with instructions can be quite ingenious at devising ways to circumvent some directives if they do not align with their personal and selfish interests. Consequently, questions must be asked about the mechanisms to guarantee compliance with the directive on foreign trips and monitor the budget for the purpose. Will the directive be strictly implemented by the presidency without fear or favor? Will it lead by example by cutting down on its foreign trips and reducing the number of official aides accompanying it on such trips? The impression has been created that there is an emergency warranting a presidential directive to limit foreign trips by government officials, even when from May 29, 2023, when the present administration assumed office, it was clear as acknowledged by the government itself that the economy was in a bad shape and that Nigerians had to brace themselves up for belt tightening, with this position being further emphasized during the presentation of the 2024 budget. A country cannot permit profligacy to remain the order of the day, let alone in such a brazen manner despite the austere times. Now to the Punch. Political behavior in Nigeria is still so primitive. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Mahmood Yakubu, recently reinforced these when he expressed concern and frustration over the burden of expenses INEC bears due to rancorous primaries conducted by various political parties. He lamented that infighting within political parties often produces controversial candidates. In turn, aggrieved contenders disrupt INEC's activities through expensive litigation. Specifically, Yakubu raised the alarm ahead of the off-cycle governorship election in Edo, scheduled for September 24th. Fearing the obvious, he stated that the primaries in the All Progressives Congress, People's Democratic Party, and Labour Party were acrimonious. In politics, primaries are a linchpin for good governance because the process is expected to build consensus among party members who should present the candidate that best embody their ideological values to the electorate. In Nigeria, this is not so, as the electorate is limited by the options presented by the political parties. Here, political parties lack the ideological backbone that drives their politics. They are mere special purpose vehicles to capture power and wealth by the political class. Crucially, the off-cycle elections in Edo and Ondo in September and November respectively are test cases for INEC's preparedness for the 2027 general elections. That is the editorial review for today. I am Samson Omotosho.
thorough review, we end the national news for this evening. But before I go, here's a recap of the main news. We have told you the Central Bank of Nigeria raised interest rates to tackle inflation. And in Ogun State, 48 repentant cultists laid down arms. In entertainment, cross-dresser Bobrisky has insisted that she's not competing with anyone. From the exciting world of sport Minister John Eno revealed Nigeria has facilities to host Commonwealth Games. That's the news as packaged by Esther Tilola and edited by Daytunji Mohammed. You can easily be a correspondent anywhere you are. Kindly send an email to i-FLIER@gmail.com and follow us on all our social media platforms at I-FLIER 103.3 FM. Many thanks to you for listening. I am Marvel Sobaloju-Oyedele. Good evening.
Fresh news,
local and foreign,
business,
entertainment,
and sport on I-FLIER 103.3